Okay, I got it mounted up on the cart. Wasn't going to show you guys all that. Pretty straightforward bolt up process. I did get a comment that one of the viewers thought that this is a Waterloo cart, and I think he's right. I've talked to some other guys and they think this is a Waterloo cart as well. So what we're going to look at here, I forgot to mention in another video the actual timing of the Magneto here. I'm going to take you over on the bench here and show you that here in a second. Then we're going to come back, take this cover off. I haven't put any oil in it yet. We're going to take this cover off and find the perfect level for the oil and see where it comes in the oil fill plug down there. So we're going to do that as well. Got it wired up. Had to go through the igniter and clean it and do a little adjusting on it. Wasn't a huge deal, just something that had to be done. Had too stiff a spring on the intake. It was just too hard for the engine to suck open. Changed that. So we'll get these changes made, get some oil in it, get it fired up. Okay, I mentioned this in the 1.5 horse video. If you haven't seen the 1.5 horse John Deere restore, take a look at my playlist and you'll find it there in that video, and I'll reiterate here. On these Magnetos, there's a couple of pins here. And when you time up the mag, if you want to make sure you've got your mag real close to being in time, these little pins will fall into a detent inside the mag. And now that I've got this one loose, I'm going to show you. And you rotate it around after you get it mounted on the engine. You rotate it around until your igniter trips. And at the very second your igniter trips, take a look in here and I'll show you what's going on. And if you want to see a more in-depth video of the repair of one of these Magnetos, look it up on my playlist. I've got this one and another one that I've done some pretty extensive recording on. Let me pop this open. This thing's got some issues. So here are the buttons I was telling you about. They protrude through and they've got little round heads on them here. And if the mag is in time, just at the moment that the Magneto or the igniter trips, that little detent ball will fall into this detent right here. That's the only place around the periphery of this that will happen. So we know that that is in time when that occurs. So I just wanted to show you that. So, you know, I know you're poking on these pins here and you feel them fall in and you don't know exactly what's going on inside there. Well, that's all it is. Just falls into this little detent right here. And as that rotates around, if it's in time, and it being in time is where your magnets here are producing the most magnetic flux into the coil, inducing the most voltage into the coil. So at that very moment is when you want to open your igniter points and cause a spark. So that's the point of getting this timed correctly. So I just wanted to show you that real quick. I forgot to mention that in the previous video. Okay, we got you set up back over here at the engine. This is the oil fill down here. I'm going to take this plug out. Typically at the bottom of these threads is where you want your oil level. We're going to fill the oil up to where it looks right in here, and I'll show you here in a second. And we'll see where it comes here, and that's the level that we're going to want to run the oil in this engine. So let's have a look at that. I'll get this cover off here. Might as well do it now. Lay the bolts down here. Use this long bolt to help me pop up the lid here. There we go. Get my fingers under it. Set it over here out of the way. Let me get the camera set up so you can get a good look down in this crankcase. Another little tip that I do is when I put these gaskets on, I will typically glue them to the block. These gaskets are glued in place, they won't move. They want you to run it up here and fold it here and bring it up this way. I cut them, and then when I put the cover on, I put a little bead of RTV here in each corner, and that usually keeps the corners from leaking. These Deeres leak a lot anyway. So anyway, what I want to show you, down in here is the oil cup. You'll see the shadow of the hole in it right there. That size hole right there lets oil into this cup. Then as the engine rotates, you see the governor weights dipping down in the oil and throwing the oil. You imagine those things run at a little faster than crank speed, so they're slinging a good amount of oil. If this little cup wasn't here, that could sling an unlimited amount of oil and just be a shower in here all the time of oil, and it would just be that much more oil coming out the bearings, getting flooded on the back of the piston, and just over oiling the engine. With this little cup and that little hole restricting the amount of flow into the cup, that cup runs almost empty. These flyweights will sling enough oil out of there to keep the oil level in the cup very low. It'll constantly be running in the hole trying to fill the cup, but these will be continuously throwing it all out of there. So it's kind of a crude but effective way of regulating the lubricating oil flow in this engine. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get some oil and pour in here. And I want to see how far down these flyweights dip into it here, and see where my level comes out down here at the fill hole. And we'll try to determine a starting point for the amount of oil this engine needs. Point is, we don't want to have too much in there and have it over oiling and blowing out everywhere. I like to use the type of oil that they were designed to use when they came out, and that is a non-detergent oil. It lets the dirt settle out of the oil down into the pan, and without a filter, you know, in that kind of a situation, well, that's what we need in these old engines. So what I've got here is just some SAE 40, and I'll probably get in your way here, but I'm going to dump some in here. Get to where you can see it here, maybe. Here we go. There it goes, running into the cup. As you can see, it's filling up around the cup, but not running into the cup as fast. I'm going to stop about right there. And we're going to let it seek its own level. It's still filling in the cup. I may have gotten a little too much in. I may have to draw some of it out. That's okay too. It's all part of the experiment here. We let that settle into the cup for a little bit, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'll handhold you here. Let me rotate it. You'll see the governor weights dipping into the little cup of oil. And as this thing's running, it's going to be throwing that. So they're dipping in, grabbing quite a little bit of oil there, and looks pretty good. I'm going to leave it right there. You'll see it, it's going to be throwing quite a bit, and you'll see that that level, I don't know if you can see it from here, is just about to the bottom of those threads. You probably can't see that, but anyway, the bottom of the threads that the plug threads into is where you want that, level. So I think we'll leave it right there. So the point of this little exercise is simply don't overfill it with oil. Down at the bottom of these threads, as you can see, is the right amount of oil. Some guys, you know, pack as much oil as they can in them, clear up to the top of the threads, and just that extra ½ inch of level in there is too much. So we're going to button her back up. The next time you see this engine, we're going to attempt to get it running. I've got to get some grease put on the cover so it doesn't stick to my gasket. That way we can pull this cover off occasionally and check things and check bearings and such. And we should be able to get it running here pretty soon. So stay tuned. Not sponsored, of course, but here's a sealer I use, Permatex Ultra Black. It does a great job of sealing up gas and oil. I've got a tube here that's still got a little in it. And I'm just going to put just a little tiny dollop right down in the corners where that goes, and that's all it takes. And let me go get the cover and we'll set it on there. It's over here on the bench. I've got it greased up, just a real thin layer of grease here on the surface. I'm going to get my bolt to help me out here. And we'll flip it over, set it down on there. Just like that. Now this bolt, long bolt goes up here, short bolts back here. We'll snug those up. I won't bore you with that. Then there's screws that goes in this cover in the side. Also there's a felt in there that takes up some space. Hopefully it doesn't let the oil come out. Right. And when you tighten down your cover, tighten the front bolt first. That allows it to pull forward into the gasket, and then tighten your other bolts back here. And that properly pulls it forward enough to seal up there in the front end. I snug these up. Back it off. Snug it. Back it off. Final tighten. And final tighten the back. And that's it. Okay, using that method that I just showed you, the sequence of tightening this down, let me show you something. Got a feeler gauge here. I got down here and looked in there and I said, man, that doesn't look like that's touching, and it's not. Got a big old air gap in there. That's going to blow oil out. So that's just about a 5/1000 feeler gauge. So I'm going to loosen this, tighten these a little bit. See if I can take care of that gap back here. And I think that did. Yes, that did. Now I bet I've got a gap up here. Let me get the feeler gauge just right here. Yep, I do in there. So now let me, with these tight, snug, let me draw this down. I felt it come down a little bit. I believe it's touching. And let me check back here. Yeah, we're touching here. So we're there. I just want to snug it just a little bit more. And as it runs and as the gasket conforms, we'll see if that leaks. And if it leaks, we'll have to either put a thicker gasket on it or put some different kind of sealer on it. This feels good up here. This is touching up here. We're touching under here. I could force it in there if I wanted to, but I don't want to. So we're going to let that go. We may have to tighten these just a little bit. As the engine runs and warms up and conforms, the gasket conforms to the surfaces. Okay guys, it's a warm but windy day. We're going to fire this thing up. I've had it running before. Runs pretty good. And I'm going to choke it. I like to stick my finger in it. Get plenty of fuel up in there. Just let it roll through easy. There we go, got fuel on my finger. Now I'm just going to roll it through here. Pull it up easy. Choke is on. Through compression. And there is crank. Off she goes. I've got probably an hour of run time on it. Maybe an hour and a half, something like that. Just letting it run a little bit. Break in a little bit, make sure it's going to be okay. And it seems to be fine. I've gotten it pretty warm where it was steaming pretty good. And I think it's ready to take to a show. So again, hey, I appreciate you guys following along, watching the videos. If you like what I'm doing, please subscribe, make a comment. Always invite comments, and hit the like button. So I'll give you a few minutes of it running here, and we'll catch up with you later. Watch for me on the next one. And to shut it off, all I do is just turn the fuel off. Takes about a half a turn. And as soon as it quits turning, I reach down here, open it up that half a turn, and it's ready to start the next time. Thanks for watching.